Google wants to get you a job. They may not want to actually hire you at Google. Well, they might, but Google wants to help you find work somewhere, at least somewhere. So if you're a student, whether you're in primary, secondary, or higher education, Google wants to help you out. They want to help you out for the long term. Why do they want to do that? Because they want you to use their products to do that. So they want you to use Google Mail or Gmail, Google Drive, and all the Google tools in order to basically do everything with your life. So that's where Google and Education for Students comes in. So this modern lesson is going to talk about how they want you to use Google Apps and all that good stuff to improve your life. And that's the goal of modern lessons after all too. So if you're a student, you're in primary or secondary student, there's a lot of cool things that Google is doing to really get you excited to join computer and programming stuff. So they have a lot of things called Google Science Fair, Google Code Jam, or Google Code In, which are really just online events where you can show off the fact that you know how to do some coding. They have the Science Fair, I'd say, is the biggest one, and I'll show you what that looks like. The Google Science Fair shows off a lot of cool stuff that students have submitted. So really they have a whole competition and judges, obviously, that will basically put up a lot of really interesting science experiments, and you can then judge them and check them out. So Google Science Fair, pretty cool. Definitely check that one out. And the other thing for primary and secondary students that you should know about is the YouTube Space Lab, which I think is really neat. And basically it's just a way for YouTube to show off how attached to all the cool stuff happening in space it is. So the Scientific American Space Lab, or YouTube Space Lab,
There's a simple
has
explanation for why barns are painted red when farmers.
pretty fun. All right, so they have a lot of really cool videos that you should check out. I think they're pretty neat. And if you ever want to have your little doodle show up as the Google logo for a day, enter it through Doodle for Google, which is open to 5 to 18-year-olds. I think that's pretty awesome. All right. When I started out this modern lesson, I said Google wants to get you a job, and that's true because they want to help students in higher education either get jobs at Google or somewhere else. So how are they doing that? They want to give you a bunch of tips. So you can click on College Tips, it'll bring you here, and they show you a bunch of ways that Google apps and products can help you get a job or meet a potential roommate or prepare for college, all that good stuff. So you can talk about prospective college students. Let's say we're a current college student. You can see how Google Calendar would help you. You could see how to chat with your parents. If you want, you can even talk about setting up entire groups or how to use Google Plus to properly connect with people in education. But college seniors, here we go. This is a way that you can use Google tools to help get a job. So you can basically build out a resume using Google Sites or Google Drive if you want. You can set a to-do list or even make that a follow-up list. So let's say you apply to a bunch of jobs, some being at Google. You can then do a follow-up list and remind yourself to further email people to see if they got your resume. You can also throw all your pictures on there and even check out if you do get a job or are moving somewhere, you can check out your new home using Google Street View, which is pretty great. I would say the key thing to point out here is the best piece of advice they have is what's in a name. And it says for prospective college students, but really this goes for anybody. Be very careful about the username or email that you pick. So SkaterGirl22, they use it as an example, but really anything that might be a little less professional might not be the best thing. So for my email, for example, I used my last name and then a period and then my first name at gmail.com, and that's my email address. So it really helps make it show that you aren't really, too crazy and whatever. So SkaterGirl22 versus your actual name at gmail.com, I think you can see what would look better on a resume. All right, so we're going to go back, and finally I'm just going to show you a couple more things that Google does. So they have Google Apps for Students. If you don't know what that is, It's basically Google wants you to use all their apps as much as possible, and this is something that you can do to by yourself, or you can use this to send to your school administrators and encourage them to use Google products. And I'm sure that they've considered it, but it's always worth sending it their way. Basically, it's a great way for you to use a lot of their free stuff and keep it all in sync together using the Google Cloud. Finally, I would encourage you to check out the Google Student blog, which I think is a pretty good read. And it's really just filled with tips, ideas, thoughts for students, and a lot about what Google is doing for and with students right now. They do a lot of summer programs, so they'll have a lot of things about how to apply and become, for example, here, a young innovator at Google, and that kind of stuff. So they do a lot of showcasing of what they're doing, and you can probably get a few good ideas about what Google is looking for in students in terms of job applicants as well. So this is like an inside scoop on figuring out what Google wants in potential applicants. So if you're just graduating, I'm making this video literally on the day of commencement at my alma mater, and you can check out a lot of the cool stuff that Google wants in new graduates. So whatever age you are, I would definitely recommend checking out Google in Education for Students.